Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I was a Rhodesian soldier. There was this other woman who cooked a dog for us, and we dealt with her in the most inhumane manner. But how did we get there? I struggle to sleep each and every day, and even though this happened so many years ago, it replays in my mind each and every day. I do not have any peace at all, and I am just sharing this so that our youth can learn one or two lessons. You can never take a life and still lead a normal life. This is where it all started. Back in the 1970s, we as black people had to take things into our own hands and fight the colonial system. Rhodesia then was ruled by the white colonial system, and it was divided into two: Northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, and Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. As you can tell, this Rhodesia name was derived from the name Rhodes, the very own Cecil John Rhodes. Now I was at a boarding school, a missionary school built by the white missionaries, and one day as we went to sleep after study, we were shocked to see a man who just appeared in our dormitory, and he told us to keep quiet and not to scream, not to let out a sound. We all sat down in the dormitory and listened to this man who had his face all covered with dark charcoal, and he explained to us why we needed to fight the white colonial system. And after his presentation, I was convinced that I also wanted to make a change in my country and to be part of this amazing movement, the guerrilla warfare. Brother Nashi, the man told us to keep our mouth shut, continue with life as if nothing had happened, and to never say a word to the authorities. The man left and disappeared into the thin dark night, and that night we went to sleep with a lot of interest. We were actually fantasizing about traveling to China, Russia. Countries like Russia and Mozambique were ready to hold our hands and to train us. The following day, all the boys, I noticed that they would talk in small groups, and I realized that this man had made such a huge impact. He had promised to come for us, and I also realized that they had visited all the dormitories and had managed to get the support from all of us. A few weeks later, they came back and they took us silently, and I was part of the first group that was taken, and we were in groups of 10. They promised to come back, and that is how we left silently. And if the boarding master did a roll call, all the boys would not say a word. We walked the entire night through the bushes, and at this point we were off to Mozambique, and this was easy because our school was in the Eastern Highlands, a small town next to Chimoio in Mozambique. We walked the entire night, and they knew the safe place for us to go through. We were also not to be seen or to be heard by the other white farmers. The whites were in power, and we had not to be in trouble with them. At around 5 a.m., we were about 10 kilometers in Chimoio, deep into the forest, and they told us that they were going to get food, and we had to rest. So we rested, Brother Nashi. We rested, and there was no transport or food, but these comrades will take us to the blacks in the villages, and those black folks in the villages would cook for us. They brought food, and we ate after a long journey of walking on foot. My parents had sent me to school, but I had decided to leave school. At this point, I knew my mom would hate me, but I had to do this because this was the best thing to do. One has to fight for his or her own country. The following morning, we arrived at the base where we were offered training. The plan was not to fight the government openly, but to ambush them. The training was not easy. As a tough government awaited for us, the rumors were spreading, and the Rhodesian government was aware of the operation that was taking place in Chimoio, Mozambique. There were no phones, and no one even warned us. Communicating was through word of mouth, and one morning as we prepared to go for an assembly, the base was in the middle of nowhere, and we used to sleep on the other side of the valley, while the school was on the other side of the valley. In between, there was a river, and there was a base where all the important dignitaries would come, and all the equipment was there for fighting. This was spinster by other countries that was against the white colonial government. On this morning, I don't know what delayed me, but most of our people were on the assembly as we prepared to start the day, and I will never forget this day, Brother Nashi. Up to now, the sounds are ever present in my ears, and as I was tying my shoes, ready to leave for training, I heard sounds, and these were coming from the air. They were like, woo! It happened so fast that there was no time, and I heard sounds of shouting. Yes, it was the first time to hear such a loud, deafening sound, and it was confusion, and the Air Force guys were swifter and much more faster. I went out and saw thousands of youth being massacred, and there was a thick blanket of dust and smoke, and the Air Force guys advanced to the place where I was. They destroyed everything that was there, all the makeshift buildings, those ones that were made by mud just to accommodate us as we were training. How did I survive? I don't know, but it was by the grace of the Lord. Now this happened after the Air Force guys were done destroying. They flew their planes down to see if there were any survivors and to finish them off. I had never been filled with so much fear, and these Air Force guys were coming from the heart of Salisbury herself, now Harare, and the government had sent them to destroy this operation that was planning to attack the ruling government. All the buildings had been shot down. Most of them were on fire. There was smoke and dust everywhere, and I just ran next to a very small bush to hide. I had lost my mind. I thought I was ready for war, but at this point I realized that war is not a walk in the park. I went and I squared right next to this other small bush, and the white soldiers came off from the planes explaining all the bodies, examining. I went and I squared right next to this other small bush, and the white soldiers, they kept on coming down from those helicopters, just looking at all the bodies and finishing the ones that still had the life in them. In my direction came one black soldier, and I was shocked that we had also our own people that were supporting the white colonial system. He came into my direction, and I saw his shoe first. He looked at me, and then he said, "Why even come for training when you are nothing but small kids?" I was only 15 at the moment. He then kicked me and whispered, "Just lie as if you are dead." Then he left and shouted, all clear, boss." They quickly ran to the helicopter and left. From there, there was silence. The sounds of the helicopter faded away, and the gun smoke left all of us drunk, and this happened at around 7 a.m. 4 hours later, I heard someone shouting, "Anybody here? Wake up, guys, anybody here?" That is when I woke up, and only to realize that this was not a nightmare, this was not a dream. Brother Nashi, my son, you have never seen such dead bodies in your entire life. Neither had I ever seen so many dead people all heaped up in a single place. It was just about a few of us who had survived, and mostly those who were training us had vanished in the bush as they used their experience to hide, but the rest were just kids who had recently started their training and had no idea of how to run away. I found myself in just the few survivors, and up to today, I know that it was all by the grace of God. We had to leave that same moment, and all of my friends were dead, mostly my friends from school. At this point, we didn't cry. We had to move faster because the possibility of those helicopters coming back were much more higher. We left and we went further and further. The Mozambican government took all responsibility. Then as we were leaving, all of those dead bodies were buried. All those people, they were just buried in one single mass grave. And Brother Nashi, if I get the strength, I will continue and I will tell you how I ended up being a guerrilla fighter and ended up killing one lady who cooked dog meat for us. Dear listeners, right there was a translation of a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brothers there. We're saying that he is a war veteran, and these are some of the experiences that he had during the war. Strange things do happen in this world.